Good evening. Call the meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Gary.
Here.
Pepcorn.
Here.
Preston. Here. Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Aye. Approve the order of agenda. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda? And I believe we're moving two elements further back, Kimber, right?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 15th, 2021 regular meeting?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Strand, I think you had some corrections to that, or is that no longer true?
As I read the draft of the minutes, Mayor, it suggested when we were talking about the emergency declaration that we had not voted on the main motion to actually enact the ending of the declaration. My understanding of what we did as a commission was we had a main motion presented by Commissioner Preston, seconded by Commissioner Garrick. That main motion was amended to separate out the issue of liquor, going home with takeout orders for restaurants. So that was separated out. We approved that amendment. Then the entire motion was approved, thereby ending the declaration, except for the continuance of the liquor issue.
So now we're at that point, and I think there was discussion whether the two were intertwined or held that way. Many of the commissioners thought the emergency declaration went until this meeting to kind of make the final solution. So if you have a suggested repair of the minutes, I'd ask for that now, John, if you did.
Well, the only suggestion I'd say was that it actually was approved.
Okay. So in the future, we'll take note of that when we're doing amendments to motions, what we're actually trying to go. I think a lot of people felt the emergency declaration was over. So carrying that in mind, all those in favor of the minutes, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 26?
I so move. Second.
And that's with the corrections of what we're moving off the consent agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Gary.
Yes.
Preston.
Aye.
Strand.
Yes.
Mahoney.
Aye. So we're going to go to resident comments. We'll put the rules up. I just want people to remember, comments are actually meant to be talking about what we're talking at the commission and the elements of those commissions. We're not supposed to be derogatory towards people, or we have to be polite in our comments. We are going to discuss the resident comment period after this discussion tonight because I want to have the commissioners' input on what we talk about in the future. All my commissioners have cell phones, email addresses, as well as myself. I would encourage people to please use those numbers and call them, and also use email as well to get a hold of them. So we would like to have the ability for people to easily converse with our commission. So tonight we have speaking Jack Shaw. Are you here, Jack? Please come to the mic at the left, please. And Kay Schwartzwalter would be next, so just if she's in the audience, if she'd come close to the mic, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about parking, the restricted parking on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays in the winter months. Why do you have a law on that when people don't do it? Cops won't enforce it. Even the 48-hour parking, you're supposed to move your vehicle more than just 8 feet. I was told that it should go around the block or a little bit further before being parked back to where it's supposed to be. Parking on the sidewalk and not getting a ticket. I know I've had mine blocked because I had my sidewalk redone, reseeded. I had the officers called on me. Well, I went out and talked to them. It was basically because I had fertilizer and that. and a lot of people walk their dogs. Well, 13th Avenue and 14th Avenue, people are getting ticketed for parking Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays. But on Thursdays, Tuesdays, and Saturdays, on the regular street, they ain't ticketed them. But when the cops are called, they go up and knock on his door and have him moved. There was one night that I sat there and I watched his girlfriend move his car 4 sheets to the wind. Took her 7 times to try to park it, with law enforcement sitting right behind him. No tickets, no nothing. You know, if I was to drive without insurance, I would get a ticket. This guy backs into my fence. Oh, no insurance for that day. And I'm just wondering why we have parking restrictions if your law enforcement is not backing that up. And I do, you know, I've got a threatening letter from this guy to email. It says, if your only joy in life
Jack.
is calling cops.
Jack, your time is up. Kay Schwartzwalter?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Kay Schwartzwalter. A little over a week ago, a White Lives Matter march organized by white supremacists was slated to be held nationwide, including here in Fargo. Black Lives Matter and One Fargo gathered once again in protest to stand up for hate, against hate in our community. They were joined by several hundred supporters, many of whom were young people in our city. That same afternoon, 20-year-old Dante Wright was shot and killed by a white police officer in Brooklyn Center, Minnesota. Mayor Mike Elliott of Brooklyn Center held an emotional press conference after meeting with grieving residents. He said people are hurting, they are traumatized, and they too are afraid of being killed. A few days later, a friend of mine in Fargo posted this on social media, quote, "Stopped by Mills Bakery after my second shot today and there was a black man getting arrested outside of the spirit shop. Did I sit in my car and wait to make sure he was okay? Yes. Did 4 police cars show up for one man? Also yes. 4 cars, one man who was handcuffed and cooperating completely. I am aware that I do not know the whole story. I do not know why he was getting arrested. All I know is I found myself not able to drive away because I was worried for him." End quote. Many of us are deeply concerned and fearful for the safety of our neighbors and friends of different races, ethnicities, and sexual orientation, even here in Fargo. The next generation is speaking to us. They want us to change the way we do things. It's not up to people of color to fix white racism. We created it, we need to fix it. And so now I ask you, our city leaders, to please take immediate and necessary actions to ensure all residents of Fargo feel welcome and supported and safe. Thank you.
Wes Villame?
Wes Villame, he, him pronouns. I'd like to start by saying long live George Floyd and justice for Dante Wright and Breonna Taylor. There is no question that policing in America is an absolute danger to people of color and needs to be transformed. According to the National Coalition of State Legislature, lawmakers have introduced 450 pieces of legislation in 31 states in the 11 weeks after George Floyd's murder. The best we could do in our city is a chokehold ban with exceptions. In 2014, a Fargo lieutenant accidentally discharged his taser while in the precinct and failed to report the incident. An internal investigation would unfortunately lead to him tragically taking his life. A review board was formed and more than 70 officers came forward complaining about the former police chief's discipline methods. With little to no public input, the city of Fargo paid Chief Turns $98,000 to resign. The city would go to internally hire Chief David Todd. He would switch to an education-based discipline method, which did little to stop Todd Osmondson from wreaking havoc on the BIPOC community. Carl R.P., director of the COPS office, states that racial profiling is one of the most highly visible and important issues facing law enforcement today. Recent surveys show that more than 60% of Americans believe that racial profiling exists. I've come to learn that Fargo PD doesn't even properly collect stops by demographics data, which would allow us to see how biased our PD is in policing our marginalized community. We cannot continue to allow our police departments to police themselves. It is time for our city to intervene for the sake and safety of its people. I'm calling for our leaders to enact a citizen review board to hold our police accountable. I'm also calling for the city to mandate policies and guidelines in accordance with national standards for the collection and study of stops by demographics data. And last but not least, I'm also calling for a transparent use of force database to be established as well. The culture of Fargo PD is broken, and Chief Zabolski will not be able to fix it alone. Should he try, 70 cops may very well rise against him. Thank you.
Ashley Oss.
My name is Ashley Oss. My pronouns are she, they. Trans rights are human rights. Black lives matter. These are not radical ideas. Our city is made up of a beautiful variety of citizens, including transgender people, non-binary people, and people of color. LGBTQ people and people of color have always existed here. Unfortunately, as we witnessed on April 5th, there are some people in our community who would wish to change that. They would have us believe that these are matters of opinion. If your belief is that certain people have no right to exist, that is not an opinion. That is the definition of hatred. Hatred, too, has always existed here. Our city's failure to unequivocally condemn hatred has caused further harm to already marginalized groups of people. Because you won't speak against them, the hateful in our city feel emboldened. A hateful person saw our city hall to be an appropriate place to mock and shame transgender people. Only one of you attempted to dissuade him. Mayor, city commissioners, it's time to make it clear that hate has no place in Fargo. Speak out against the discrimination in our city. Take action when our LGBTQ, Black, and Indigenous citizens' rights are threatened. Make it clear to everyone that trans rights are human rights and that Black lives matter.
Brandon Kruger.
Hello, thank you. My name is Brandon Krieger. I'm white, cisgender male, and I choose to go by the pronouns he, him, and his. I'm not a spokesman for the LGBTQ plus community, but I am an ally. And there were comments made just 2 weeks ago that were violent and disrespectful towards LGBTQ plus communities, individuals. People in our community who suffer from gender dysmorphia or any other gender confusion are not to be degraded or oversimplified by individuals who do not understand what they are going through. A physician's role in patient care is to do no harm, which includes assessing and assisting an individual in achieving emotional, mental, and physical stability to improve their patient's quality health of life. To attack the profession is to belittle some of the brightest and kindest caring individuals in our community. To those who think physicians cannot be trusted due to what happened in 2020 are sadly projecting their own trust and insecurities. The profession sacrificed throughout 2020 to save families and friends in our communities throughout America. To distrust them now because of internalized transphobia is misguided and not based in fact. Now, I do not have to stand up here and use crude hand gestures or shocking language, but I will make this statement. Whatever gender anyone feels reflects who they are, you are welcome in Fargo. You are welcome with open arms. Bring your fears, your doubts, and your confusion here. There will be people here that you will find as friends and people who will support and accept you for who you are. Pivoting topics to racism. In definition, when people think that one color or race is better than another, and they treat or mistreat people based on that belief. Through this perspective lens of our own minds, we are unable to see if we are racist or not, but require feedback from the world around us to help us guide the truth to ourselves, and to help us grow to where we need to be, not accept who we are. The biases can be subconscious, and only through self-growth and reflection, self-growth and feedback of others can we grow as a society. I hope that one day our country will realize that without removing the veil of ignorance and hate, we will never move past this caste system disguised as racism that changed our country to the 1700s. Now, I'm not flashy when it comes to comments or quotes. Taken out of context are laughable at best, but threats are mere whims of cowards. I'll leave you with my own quote. Never be cruel, never be cowardly. Remember, hate is always foolish. Love is always wise. Try to be nice, but never fail to be kind. The Doctor. Thank you.
Catherine Fink. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm just going to dive right into it. I have 3 requests for the City of Fargo, for the Commission. These are very quick, fast, and easy things that you guys can do. Number 1, to support the citizens you serve in the City of Fargo, I humbly request a public official statement condemning white supremacy, domestic terrorism, hate crimes, and discrimination. I have noted in my research that I just gave to you North Dakota Century Code 12-1-1404 and 12-1-1405 that addresses discrimination in public places as a misdemeanor offense. I also have provided you with many examples of city commissions across the nation who have followed this model, which resulted in many benefits of their communities, strengthened their economy, tourism, public safety, and physical and mental health. I've also included toolkits that are specifically created by city leaders for city leaders to be inclusive, supportive, and active advocates for those who face discrimination. Number 2, my second request is for you to support a diversity, equity, inclusion task force or commission. This group would be made up of and governed by active members in the community that represent the diverse faces that represent this community. That also exhibits provided in the document that help guide the city leaders in how to effectively support this type of platform. There is endless possibilities, as noted in much of the research provided, such as more effective communication between the city leaders and the public, data collection and transparency, action-based responses and resources for those who need supports who face discrimination based on their ethnicity, sexuality, gender, age, economic class, or disability. This brings me to my third action item. That today, as you have heard from others, the release of data to the public that has been or can be collected specifically surrounding the FPD stops by demographics. I'm aware that this is something that's already been talked about. Just based on time here, I'll just wrap it up. I'll continue my research on these items and publicly publish my findings. I graciously but strongly urge this commission today that these 3 action items be taken into consideration. I also hope this conversation can continue with the people. Thank you.
Thank you. Arden Light.
My name is Arden Light. My pronouns are he, him, and they, them. I would like to speak about why I believe the bias crime ordinance should be enacted and move forward. I am transgender. I'm a college student. I'm an activist. I love politics, helping people, and using my voice for good, which is part of why I'm here. because 2 weeks ago, someone stood up here and used their voice to cause harm and completely disregarded and minimized the experience of transgender people. They compared being transgender to wanting an amputation. So I'll tell you a little bit of what I experience as a transgender person. Everyday tasks, like showering and getting dressed, are a struggle, and I have to do both in the dark. My difficulty is not only in my own head, but also in the community. There have been multiple occasions where people found out that I am transgender and threatened to kill or beat me. I have been denied access to bathrooms, called a freak, had slurs yelled at me, and had some truly horrible experiences in healthcare. So you may ask yourself why I don't just stop being transgender, and believe me when I say that I have tried, but it's not a choice. And for parents of trans youth or trans youth who are listening, I want you to hear this. Being transgender is not wrong. It is not a choice. I want you to know there are lots of people in this community who will accept you as you are and who will love you, who will listen to you, and who will do anything and everything they can to protect and help you. Being transgender is not a sin. It is not a crime. Being transgender is beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Arden. Conrad Larson.
Hello, my name is Conrad Larson. My pronouns are he, him, and they, them. I am also a proud transgender man. I'm here to speak because I moved to Fargo in 2019 for a safe place to be myself. I'm 27. When I first realized I was trans, I didn't even know trans men existed. I've been through a lot in my life, and I came to the city to be supported and to find community. And I'm happy to say I found community. And if you look around, I know I have community that supports me. On April 6th, I was on vacation with family for the first time out of the country in my life. I was having a great time, and I woke up and I looked on Facebook and I saw that at this very city hall, a man in a wig and bad makeup was mocking trans people and mocking people who self-harm or have suicidal thoughts. There is an epidemic of LGBTQ suicide. I'm not the only LGBT person in my life that I know who struggled with those thoughts or self-harmed. I'm not the only one in my life that I know who had to rush to see their friend at the hospital because he almost died by suicide. I'm here to speak because this hate speech was allowed for 2.5 minutes. And when Commissioner Preston said with sincerity that hate speech is not tolerated, Deputy Mayor Peepcorn scolded her. He stood for hate. And I have good news. Deputy Mayor Peepcorn is very easily replaced. If you continue to stand for hatred against people who are in this community, you will not continue to represent us. And that is a promise.
Conrad, it's getting a little personal now.
Personal was saying that my life didn't matter. Personal was letting a man talk who would rather see me dead than here comfortable in my skin.
Next speaker, Faith Dixon.
I don't even know what to say after that. Good job, buddy. Good job. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. My heart is saddened on the day. I'm excited about you all being here. Mayor, I mean, this is a huge turnout. Wow. Thank you all. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart being here. I know Wes feels the same joy. But let's talk to them. Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. With what has happened in our sister city, Minneapolis, I believe Fargo needs a police conduct oversight commission. I know it's one thing that has been on the table for the last year, but we need an independent body which assures police services are delivered in a lawful and a non-discriminatory manner. We want a public body of credible people within our community to take the concerns of police and community interactions with the Fargo Police Department to make sure that it is done non-biased. I watched the trial of George Floyd and the parents of Dante Wright, and even the other gentleman killed a 13-year-old in Chicago, my home city. And my first thought was, we need to see public leaders stand up like the Brooklyn Center mayor did and say, this will not be tolerated. I want to see our mayor, our city commissioners say the same thing before Fargo becomes a Minneapolis and a Brooklyn Center. This today shows you that you have the attention of this community. We're not going anywhere. But what you can do is bring peace in this community. And when we voted to get you in that spot, that's what we thought each and every one of you all were doing. And if you can't do that, please resign. That way you don't have to hide behind the chairs there. You can continue to live the way you want to live, but you don't have to serve this community in which I love. Thank you.
That's the end of the public hearing. People can sit down. I want to explain a little bit to the crowd. The public input was exactly what it's designed to do. It's people be able to speak. If we got into debate about everything that everybody says at this meeting, we carry a long meeting on a public discussion, but we wouldn't get the business of the city done. So part of the rules that we had is we were not able to respond to many of the comments that are made, because otherwise that gets into discussion, oftentimes an argument. So Preston chose to speak last week, and what we're going to talk about, should we have interactions or discussions, or should we take that to a later time? Mr. Strand, do we want it in the Human Relations Commission? Is that where we want the dialogue for people to discuss things? There's some suggestions you made as far as having a community of diversity, equality, inclusion. Is that the Human Relations Commission, or where is that? Where is the right place to put that? Should we have an oversight committee that looks over the police? We've talked about that, and we actually are looking into that. But one of the rules I want the commissioners to understand is, do you want to change the rules in any way? Do you want to change how we do this, or change it up, or whatever? I think we had double the amount of people that want to talk today, so it's kind of hard sometimes. Who do you allow to talk, who don't you? Do I throw all the names in a hat and we pick them out so it's fair to everybody, or how do we do that? It's obvious many of you want to talk about different things, and it's difficult when some people can't get their say. And the world is moving fast. We have a lot of things happening. Things happen every week right now, and it is really hard to keep up to that. So I open to the commissioners if you want to change the rules or do anything different on this public comment time that we have. I open it for discussion.
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Preston.
So as I've been thinking a lot about what happened 2 weeks ago, and realizing that probably the more appropriate place for one of us, for myself, to have intervened was right in the middle of what was being presented. And I think that it's not an issue of responding to, but it's an issue of cutting off presentations that are attacking an individual and or population that may not be able to respond, as well as anything that's obscene. And I saw those comments last time as both. So what I would have done, and should have done probably, was call for a point of order and ask for that individual to step away from the podium before he could even complete his comments. The thing is, in these guidance statements, the thing that's not really clear to me is the use of the word inflammatory. The inflammatory language will not be tolerated. And if we come to a common understanding of what inflammatory is, and I would say criticism of the issues that we take up here, or even what we have enacted, criticisms of that is totally appropriate coming from the public comments. But when an individual is attacked for their lifestyle or perhaps their belief system, that's something different. So even a common understanding up here of what is appropriate, and then we cut them off at that moment.
Mr. Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. You know, we have another rule that's sometimes enforced and sometimes not enforced. And that rule is that there's no applauding. Well, here's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to applaud all of you. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for the gift you've given us.
Any other comments? Arden, Conrad, I want you to thank you for sharing with us tonight. It was one of the harder things I had to watch when we did have our speaker last time. We do want our community to be a loving community. We want our people all to be comfortable in this community. We try very hard in this community to show we're embracing. We want people to come to our community and want it a safe place to live, raise their families, do their work. We will continue to do that. You know, all the things you talked about in police reform, we'll continue to work on that. We're still on somewhat a transition pace, but we are looking at tickets and demographics and those types of things. The chief is instituting a new system to do that. Apologize, that has taken a while to get that done, but that will be done. We are still talking about having an oversight committee. Who should be on it? And you're all here, so I mean, there's a great time to give input at some point. Is who should we put on it? Who should bear? What should their role be? What should they do? I never want anybody ever shot in a traffic pickup. I mean, it is a shameful purpose. My son could be picked up in a traffic stop, and if he was killed, it would devastate me and the whole community. We do not need that in any of our policing, and we are working strong to make sure that none of that happens. So I thank for the input tonight. As usual, you come together and you tell us a variety of different things, and it's very good for our commission to hear those things. John's right. We should applaud you for sharing with us tonight. We will continue to discuss public input. I still think it's important for our community to have a space in which you can communicate and tell the things that are going on. We're going to reflect a little bit of how many people speak and how we get a fair system so people can speak out and able to communicate with us. So no other comments. We'll go into our other public input opportunities. We have public hearings. Ruth Larson up, 28.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Bruce Tarleson, Inspections Department, here on a dangerous building case. You've seen my packet in your information, and I was planning to do the full dangerous building presentation, but we received information late last week and over the weekend that there may be an attorney involved. So I was wondering if the attorney was appearing virtually. Have we found out yet?
Jason Hendrickson, are you online?
Mayor, this is Jason Henderson. I'm the attorney for Lakeview Loan Servicing.
Thank you, Jason. In lieu of his being present tonight, I will present a shortened version of the case for your information, and then I'll turn the floor over to Jason. This case first came to Inspections Department in the middle of February as a complaint from Exxon Energy as a house with a dangerous situation. We acted immediately. Inspections arrived at the house and found the complaint to be accurate, and we had to make a decision that nobody could live in that house at the time. We secured the house all but the front door and allowed the tenants time to get their belongings. The next week, we went back and boarded up the remainder of the house. We researched the background of this owner, and found out the owner had passed away a year prior, and that it appeared nobody was taking responsibility for this house for that entire year. After the tenants removed the belongings, we boarded up the house. A few weeks later, the police department called us, and in regard to a house having squatters living in it, it was this house again, and we again had to secure the house. We had to secure this house a total of 3 times due to break-in. We again researched police activity on the house and found out that there was 30 calls of service over the past year at this home alone. I believe that there's tens of thousands of dollars expended of city resources on this house alone. You've seen the list of those calls of service in the back of your packet. Inspections would like to see this house, along with its problems in the neighborhood, go away, but we'll listen to the representative at this time.
Jason, you're on.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Again, yes, I represent, as an attorney, I represent the mortgage holder on the property, Lakeview Loan Servicing. And respectfully, and I'm not here to, at this point, take any issues with any of the findings that the city inspections offices has found at this stage. I have no reason to have any issues with that on a factual basis. What I am respectfully asking the city commission to consider this evening is to basically to hold for till the May 17 meeting to make a final decision on this. And what my client has done in the interim and I believe you've probably each received an email from me on Friday. You've probably seen the pictures that I attached to them. We've put a steel barrier on the windows and the doors to take care of the immediate issue of intruders getting in, squatters getting in. And also what my client is doing is procuring bids to take a full look at whether or not this is repairable or not. Admittedly, my client is become aware of this from a property preservation point later than it would have wanted to. And I'm sure both my client and the city have a lot of common ground on both on the timing, the desired timing, and ultimately what we want here is we want, certainly a property that is in good structure, is in good form, is marketable. And the reason being is there's been, in this particular situation, just a very peculiar combination of occurrences that have happened on this property. The borrower passing away right at approximately the same time the COVID-19 pandemic struck. And what that did was, with my client believing in good faith that this was a lawfully occupied property, any movement towards a foreclosure over the last year have been on hold. The loan on this property is backed by the Housing and Urban Development, which has put occupied foreclosures on hold since March of 2020. And so that's the reason that my client has come late to the game. They're now aware this is not lawfully occupied, this is vacant. They are taking the property preservation steps that need to be taken and are moving with as much due diligence as they possibly can. Again, what I would stress the most is that my client's position and the city's position, which is we don't want a dangerous property in the community, are in basically in agreement. We don't have mutually exclusive positions in that regard. So under the circumstances and the facts that have basically transpired, what I would ask is that the commission give us 4 weeks. We'll work closely with the city inspections office. We're again trying to procure those bids and to get this resolved. My client, because they now know that this property is not lawfully occupied, is able to take possession prior to completion of foreclosure. Absent being vacant in that way, could not lawfully do that. So that's my respectful request, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission.
So Bruce, you're saying a continuance till when? Till May what?
It would be May 17th, I believe.
17th?
Yep, that's
May
correct.
17th,
Yes.
and we would agree to that. Jason's correct. The house was secured better than anyone we've ever seen. So the squatters issue will be taken care of as long as the exterior is maintained. I do believe they've secured a local property manager or a maintenance company to take care of the property and do inspections on it.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mayor,
Mr. Strand?
I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge who Jeremy Kelly was in our community. You know, he was the guy who went to people's houses in the middle of the nights to help them fight their addictions and help them save their lives and help them find jobs and help them find housing. And he succumbed to his own circumstances too. So I'm really relieved. I'm proud of the work your department's doing, but I'm also relieved that we're going to have an ability to honor his legacy, and maybe this house will continue. I know he was very proud of it.
Thank you, John. Roll call vote?
Strand,
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Pipcorn.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Jason. Item B, Reeves Edition, Milwaukee Edition, Section 1, Township 139 North, Range 49 West. Zoning approved by Planning Commission on 3/3/21. Zoning change from limited industrial, general commercial to a conditional overlay with general commercial with planned unit development overlay, and request to repeal the conditional overlay. First reading of the rezoning ordinance and the planned unit development master plan. Donald Crest to explain this one.
Good evening, Commissioners. Donald Kress of the Department of Planning and Development. I'll be presenting the next three items. These items include ordinances prepared by the City Attorney's Office that are also in your packet. Item 28B is the Reeves Edition. It is also known as the Bruhala Project. We'll talk more about that in a moment. Again, a zone change and a planned unit development overlay. The property is located here along First Avenue North in the 1600 block of First Avenue North. You're probably familiar with this. This would be the Drecker Brewing Company here. The property, as we see, is zoned general commercial with a conditional overlay and limited industrial. The new zoning will be entirely general commercial with a planned unit development overlay. This is the site from a few weeks ago. It still looks like this today, still undeveloped. This is the area where the new building is going to be. This, again, is the existing Drecker Brewing Company. And then these are also other buildings on the property, the rail yard offices, ice house, fitness, and there are a couple other businesses on that site. The master land use plan here shows the aerial view. So this is the vacant lot we just looked at. This is the proposed new building on that site. These are the existing buildings. The proposed new building will be a mixed-use building that will have an event venue, retail, lodging, as well as permanent residences in a 4-story building. It will be connected to the existing building here, which is the Drecker Brewing Company, and also Mr. Bartram's private residence. Again, the rail yard, office spaces, Ice House Fitness, and these other businesses here will remain. The PUD provides for this combination of uses on the site and also provides for some modifications of setbacks, landscaping, and parking to allow all aspects of this site to work together. This is a rendering of the proposed new building here provided by the applicant. This is First Avenue North out here. And just an overall aerial view here of proposed landscaping and site development, just for your reference there. There is a separate plat to this project, which is currently in review by city staff and will come before your commission on consent agenda as a minor plat in the near future. The applicant's representatives, Kevin Bartram, the architect, and Mark Bjornstad of Drecker Brewing are with us this evening and may wish to make comments to the commission. The recommended motion is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. This concludes staff's presentation, commissioners. Thank you.
Is Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this zoning change? Anybody wishes to speak? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Gary? Mahoney?
Aye. Item C, continue to 5/3/21 Covey Ranch First Edition. Approval recommended by the Planning Commission. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any discussion? Roll call vote.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Yes. Aye, I'm sorry. And Madeline's Meadow, Fourth Edition, approval recommended by Planning Commission. It's 7269 25th Street South. A zoning change from agricultural to single dwelling residential, public and institutional, and a multi-dwelling residential. It's a first reading of the rezoning ordinance, and it's a plat of Madeline's Meadows, Fourth Edition. Donald Kress.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, as the mayor has stated, this property is located along 25th Street South here. Drain 53 is over here, County Drain 53, 76th Avenue South here, Davies High School here. These Madeline's Meadows starts up here. This is the fourth edition of that Madeline's Meadows area. The zoning is currently agricultural. The proposed zoning provides for mostly single-family and an area of multifamily dwelling development or multi-dwelling development, as well as a couple of government-owned lots. This is the site. Pretty much a big open field out there. This is the Madeline's Meadows plat here. So as you see, there are largely a number of single-family lots, single-dwelling lots that are zoned SR4. This lot here will be a public park to be owned by the Fargo Park District. This lot here is zoned MR1 for some lower-density multi-dwelling development. And then this lot here is actually will be conveyed to the Southeast Cass Water Resources District. This is basically a drain buffer lot. So when the drain is finally reconfigured here, which is an ongoing process, it'll actually move a little bit over to the left here or to the east. So the center line of the drain will be along that line there. So this is just following along with our usual practice and statements in our ordinance to have a buffer zone for the drain. And we thank the Southeast Cass Water Resources District and the Park District for working closely with us and the applicant on this plat. The applicant, John Eunice from Eagle Ridge Developers, is with us tonight. There he is. Okay. He's with us tonight. He may wish to address the commission. The staff or the Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to the zoning change? Anybody wishing to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Asselson Farms, Fourth Edition, 3523 and 3575 41st Street South. Approval recommended by Planning Commission. It's a zoning change from multi-dwelling residential to limited commercial. It's a first reading of the rezoning ordinance, and it's a plat of the Asselson Farms, Fourth Edition.
Thank you,
Donald
Mayor.
Kress.
Thank you, sir. Property here is located along 41st Street South and 36th Avenue South. That's about all my landmarks here. Interstate 29 is over here. This is an undeveloped lot, as you see. It's bordered by some multifamily over here and industrial over here. This will replat. It's two existing lots, going to reconfigure those lots. Again, the property looks like this. From a few views ago, still an open field there. A couple different views along 41st Street South. This is the plat, so it's going to replat these existing lots, just move the lot line down here and rezone this southerly lot to LC Limited Commercial. This lot will remain MR3 multi-dwelling residential. The goal is to build a new dance studio for a local dance company on this lot here. Thus, the rezoning would be required. The applicant, Nick Dietrich of Dietrich Construction, is back there with us tonight. Thank you, Mr. Dietrich, and may wish to address the commission. The Planning Commission's recommendation is stated in your staff report and shown on the screen. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you, Commissioners.
Is there anyone present who wishes to speak to this rezoning? Anybody want to speak to it? We're gonna have a new dance place, you say?
Yes, sir.
Close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Item F, Renaissance Zone Project at High Road Properties LLC for a rehab project at 209 and 211 Northern Pacific Avenue North. Nicole Crutchfield to explain.
Good evening, Commissioners. As you mentioned we have a Renaissance Zone application in front of us tonight. The Renaissance Zone Authority did approve this project unanimously. Basically, what we have here is a reinvestment in an existing building to basically completely overhaul it with offices on the first floor and a condo on the second floor. We're looking at approximately a $2 million investment, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody present who wishes to speak to this Renaissance Zone project? Anybody want to speak? It's a good change, right? Can they
Yep,
help
it's a
make the
good
place?
project, adding about 15 to 20 employees eventually. And this is I think originally at the city, we were thinking this entire block might be redeveloped at some point, but also in keeping with the downtown and focus plan, it's important to keep those small businesses. And rehabbing an existing building is certainly appreciative and enhancing the storefront. I do believe the applicant is on the phone if you have any questions for them as well.
Applicant want to speak to this? If not, we'll close public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Great when we take older buildings and fix them back up. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Strand,
Yes.
Gary,
No.
Mahoney.
Aye. Item 29, COVID-19 update. Tonight, we're going to have Larry Anderson to explain it to us. Desi is out tonight, so.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to provide you with our COVID update. As of this morning, Cass County has 355 active cases, which is down from our last update provided to the Commission. The 14-day rolling average positivity rate is 6.87% in Cass County and 4.73% in the state of North Dakota. There are currently 35 individuals hospitalized due to COVID across the state, and the deaths in Cass County remain at 200. The COVID testing numbers continue to be steady. Fargo Cass Public Health continues to provide, on average, between 400 and 600 Binex or rapid tests each day at our static site located at 25th Street and 32nd Avenue. Testing is Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Testing is also available until 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Rapid testing continues to be offered 7 days a week at Hector International Airport in Fargo, as well as weekly COVID testing is taking place at North Dakota State University here in Fargo. We encourage entities wanting and needing testing to reach out to Fargo Cass Public Health for assistance. Our contact tracing group continues to conduct case investigation and notifying close contacts 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. from our call center. We continue to be a strong community partner in providing COVID vaccination. As of this morning, there has been over 130,000 vaccinations given in Cass County, representing a 54.1% first dose coverage rate and a 43.9% fully vaccinated rate. Beginning the week of April 26, Fargo Cass Public Health will administer COVID-19 vaccine from our main public health location at 1240 25th Street South in Fargo from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Tuesdays and from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursdays. Walk-ins will continue to be welcome, but appointments are preferred in order to streamline the registration process. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Sanford Health for inviting and allowing us to locate our vaccine operation out of the shared COVID-19 vaccination center since early February. We feel that transitioning to our main public health building will allow us to begin the process of integrating COVID-19 vaccine administration in our other services we provide in our community. We are also finalizing plans to provide outreach vaccination opportunities in rural communities throughout Cass County. As many people are aware, U.S. health authorities recommending pausing the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine since the last update to the commission. 6 women under the age of 50 developed rare blood clots after receiving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. To date, nearly 7 million doses of Johnson & Johnson vaccine have been administered. The pause does not mean that the vaccine is unsafe, but the pause is needed to review all data related to the possible side effects of the vaccine. It is important that we are responsive to any and all safety concerns. The CDC and FDA have many systems in place to find, report, and investigate any adverse events. By pausing the Johnson & Johnson vaccine shows that our current system is working. The CDC Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, or the ACIP, will be meeting this Friday to discuss the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. For people who have received the Johnson & Johnson vaccine more than a month ago, the risk to them is very low at this time. For people who have received the vaccine within the last few weeks and are experiencing severe headache, abdominal pain, leg pain, or shortness of breath should contact their personal medical provider. It's important to remember that there are 2 other vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, that are not seeing these adverse events. People are encouraged to be vaccinated when you can, so we can get to a higher level of immunity and closer to our new normal. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Commissioners, you have any questions? We'd say since we have a good group of people here today, let's get those vaccines done so we can get up to 70 or 80%, and then we can get rid of these masks. Wouldn't that be nice? Okay. Next item is discussion regarding the emergency declaration. It's a discussion of takeout. We did look at a couple different things, just for commissioners and the public to know, is that we were concerned that some of our emergency shelters without emergency declaration, that would go away, and we would have some difficulty in some of our emergency shelters. We're happy to find that our ordinance actually, well, goes till the end of the year and is not dependent upon the emergency declaration. So the only real issue, Eric, as I would understand, is the takeout moratorium that we presently have, or are there any other items we need to address tonight? I think Arlette Preston had asked about the police as well, if there was something with the police as well. Is that a question?
And Health Department, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. There is one additional issue in addition to addressing the takeout moratorium, and that's just the need for sort of emergency procurement policies to remain in place related to COVID. That appears to be the draft resolution, and I can distribute copies here. Essentially, what the proposed resolution is would allow them. It's customarily our standard city emergency procurement policy, whether it's a flood or a COVID emergency in this case, it is operative during a state of emergency. If you're going to terminate the state of emergency, which I fully expect you to do, this resolution would simply allow emergency procurement measures to be used when the procurement is related to COVID-19.
So we would take that this resolution is your fix that we would do tonight, but do we still address the liquor issue?
You still have to address the liquor issue.
Okay. So just so we don't get goofed up on motions, Commissioner Strand, do we want one separate for this and then address the liquor one? Would that be fair?
That would be simpler too, Mayor.
Okay. Does everybody understand what he just informed us of? Just procurement is if it's COVID-related, correct?
Is there an end date? Or is it just COVID forever?
As drafted, it would be terminated when you decide to terminate it.
So we'd have to bring it up again.
We'll have to bring it up again,
to
yes. Yep.
Amend or delete this
Right.
motion.
Okay, I have a motion.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Gary,
No.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. Now, the second part is the ability to, if you have takeout, you can have alcohol with your takeout. We did a moratorium, so the question is to expand that. I'm assuming commissioners received some emails on this? Yes. What is your pleasure? Commissioner Pipcorn.
Mr. Chair, just a few comments. I guess my main thinking behind it was, at that time, the restaurants were closed, they had restricted hours, and that affected their businesses. So that's what we did, was we enacted this to try to help them. And so now, even though it's not back to 100%, the restrictions are ended, and all those things are no longer in effect. And so I think if we decide to continue it, I would not be in favor of that. I just think it's better to end it because the emergency declaration, it was tied to that for a reason. And so that's my thinking. I'm happy to hear what the other commissioners are too. I will say there's lots of restaurants that would love to continue it because it's another opportunity for them to sell more things. But I don't think I think if you want to continue that, then you should apply for a license for that. Thank you.
Mr. Gary.
Yeah, it turns out, that's why it was enacted. You're correct on the timeline. Turns out people like it. And we've had absolutely no problems. No over-serving, no minors being given alcohol. There's no downside, really. And people seem to like it. So if it makes sense, allow people that freedom. I don't know why we want to be overly restrictive. Business models change, and every time a business model changes, it doesn't mean we need to get a new license for that thing, right? So I think we should just allow the free market to work. And people have shown with their wallets and how they're spending that this is what they want. So I don't know why we would restrict it.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Preston.
I guess I tend to agree with Commissioner Pepcorn in that, this is off sale. It truly is. And I understand there's really no standard for sealing the drinks when they come from a restaurant. Eventually, I would see that there would be an open container problem possibly happening. So I would speak against continuing it.
And just for the public, some of the bar owners and such wanted to continue because some people are still staying inside, not coming out, and a little reluctant to go to the restaurant. And the feeling was if you're still wearing a mask and concerned to be in public, that could you still have that convenience for another 3 months? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. The feedback I have received from people in the industry is entirely in favor of continuing this. I don't think I've heard from anybody in the industry that wants it stopped. Have any of you?
Mr. Chair? Well, of course, all the restaurant industry wants it to continue, and all the liquor industry would not be in favor of having it continue. That's the responses that I've got.
Mr. Chairman, it's the off sale that would be against this. It's infringing on their business, basically.
Strand had it first. John, did you want to continue?
Well, I'll just say that I don't think that we've created problems. I think we're solving some problems. The pandemic is not over. We have restaurants that are in the balance, that their future is uncertain. And I'd hate to put another nail in their coffin. If they can get a little more time and get some more business and ride it out, that would be my recommendation.
You want to make that into a motion?
I will make that motion.
Second.
And for how long would that be?
Yeah.
You can make it a law.
What would the recommendation for a timeline be, Mr. Johnson?
Well, either a date certain or a date to be, terminated in the future by the city commission, no later than perhaps a specific date, just so to catch all, to say you reserve the right to terminate it sooner, but no later than.
Could be reviewed in 3 months, John. Is that summertime's coming?
I will move that we make it reviewed every 6 months.
Second.
Mr. Gregg does a second. Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think 6 months is too
Preston.
long. Probably 2 or 3 months, but 6, nah.
Mr. Gary?
This is a totally different market than off sale, right? No one is calling up Applebee's to get food delivered to them and order 25 beers, right? If you're gonna have a party, you're gonna go to the off sale, you're gonna get the alcohol you want for that party and do that. If you wanna have dinner at your house with your significant other or with your kids or something, and you wanna have a beer with your dinner, you're gonna get a beer from Applebee's. You're not gonna spend $85 to get a 12-pack of beer, right? Doesn't make any sense. So that argument really doesn't hold water, in my opinion, that they're taking money away from the off sale. Regardless, even if they were taking money from the off sale, why does that matter? The way people are spending their money is very differently. Should we make a loss and you can only buy so much from Amazon, even though the local stores are now open? Well, no, people's habits have changed. So the idea that we're protecting that market is not our job. People will spend their money how they want to. We shouldn't stand in the way of that. There have been literally zero problems with this. So you want to say maybe there'll be a problem in the future with how we seal the drinks? Maybe we would, and at that time we could address that deal. But we're already seeing problems with bars in our community. We're already seeing issues with restaurants in our community that have literally real problems. We're not addressing those problems. But we might see a problem in the future with delivery. So therefore we must block it. That doesn't make any sense at all. Allow the market to work, allow people to spend their money the way they want. And if there is a problem in the future, then we'll address it. But until such point, allow these things to happen and allow the market to change with how people want to spend their dollars. It is not our job here to protect certain industries and to block adults from doing things that they're otherwise allowed to do.
Mr. Preston, and then Commissioner Pipcorn.
Certainly, though, we have an obligation to oversee regulatory side of the licensing that we currently do. So, and at this point, I don't believe there's any restriction for the number of drinks that a person can purchase through this as a takeout. So, you could purchase a 6-pack of beer if you wanted to. At this point, there's no restriction that way. So yes, it does take away from off sale. And yes, if you're doing off sale, it seems to me you should have an off sale license. That's what we have.
Mr. Pipcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, this policy was changed for a reason, and now that reason's over. And so now if we want to keep this going, that's not correct. Then we should change our liquor laws, because this was done to assist the restaurants and bars, mostly restaurants, because they were being closed. We had mandatory closures and we have reduced hours on occupancy. Those have been eliminated. I totally agree that the restaurants, it's still a challenge right now. They're not back to 100%, but all the restrictions are off. And so for our credibility, we can't let this go just because we feel like it. They were done for a reason, and now the reason's over. So that's why I oppose. I totally respect what Commissioner Strand's points are, and I'm sure the restaurants would love to keep it going, but that's not right. It's not fair, and if you do that, then we have to address this with liquor rules. Thank you.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. I stand corrected. I did hear from one off-sale owner that wanted this discontinued, and the rest of the people I heard from were restaurant owners. So I'm biased. The off-sales flourished in the pandemic. The restaurants almost died. Some did die. So that's where my heart's at, is the people that are struggling to try survive this pandemic. I don't want to do anything that'll harm them and make it more difficult. I have a question, though. Our police chief is in the audience. Do we know, are there problems that surfaced with our policy? And Commissioner Preston, you asked for public health. Do we know that they don't advocate for this? Or I want to not assume.
Chief Zabowski.
Thank you, Commissioners. I've checked with our staff, and we haven't had any issues with the functioning of the moratorium. So I think, absent any ordinance changes that would be needed, it's really at the will of the commission as to how you proceed.
Do you have anybody on from Public Health, or Eric, are you going to speak for them?
Yeah, I thought I would introduce one comment. I mean, this is a moratorium, which is permitted to temporarily suspend the enforcement of an ordinance because of a special reason. That was the COVID. So it does have to terminate. It's appropriate to terminate it anyways at some point related to the COVID situation. Your proposal is 6 months, and we expect this to be ongoing. Hopefully less and less and less as that time goes along, but at some point it would be appropriate to convert it to a law if you're going to make it a law.
Any other comments or discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Gehrig,
Yes.
Preston,
No.
Pepcorn,
No.
Mahoney.
No. Any other things we do have? Resolution of the emergency declaration. That's it, Eric? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think those are the only open issues, correct?
Okay. Resolution directing the insurance of refunding improvement bond series 2021 and prescribing the terms and covenants therein. Ken Cossum.
Wow.
Good evening, Commissioners. Today, the City of Fargo issued refunding improvement bonds. These are basically just special assessment bonds because they're backed by payments on special assessments. And we issued about $38.1 million worth of these bonds over a 25-year period. And Terry Heaton, our financial advisor, is on the line, on the call-in, and I wanted her to go through the results. The results were very favorable. Market conditions changed, and we had a very strong sale. So Terry, if you wanted to take it away and announce that. I asked her to be brief and brevity because of the number of items on here, so if there's any questions, feel free to ask, but otherwise she'll just report on the results.
Thank you, Kent. Mr. Mayor, Mayor Mahoney and members of the commission, today at our offices at 11 o'clock, we offered bonds on behalf of the city of Fargo. And as Kent said, it was $38.1 million to pay for the infrastructure. We received 5 bids representing 7 financial institutions. And on the handout that Kent just distributed, the 5 bidders are listed. The lowest bid came from Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and the interest rate, and again, this is for a 25-year bond. I did look at your history. This is the lowest that we have in your history for this rate, so I feel like I should have a drum roll. It is 1.85%. A month ago, when we looked at this and put together the offering statement, we estimated that it would be 2.29%. So that's almost 0.5% less than our estimate. So we're very delighted. I have to give Kent all the credit. Once again, he picked the date for the sale, and if this had been last week or the week before, it would have been probably closer to 2% or more. So again, 1.85% for the 25-year bond. And the other piece is there is a premium bid, meaning they paid more than the price of the bonds. And so we were able to reduce that. So instead of issuing $38,100,000 for bonds, the new bond issue size in the resolution is $37,310,000. We did include some premium, but the premium is even bigger than our estimate. And so with that, I will keep it brief. I should say the rating, sometimes I spend a little time on that telling you what it says. It's almost identical to the 3 months ago. And in fact, they just did a press release. But again, talking about the stability of your tax base, the strong financial position, and that you're expected to remain healthy. So a good report from Moody's with your AA2 rating as well. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, but certainly recommend the low bid from Merrill Lynch at 1.85%.
So this is fantastic because to the homeowner, what this means is you drop your percentage point almost to 0.5. So that's fantastic for anybody who's built a home and has specials in our community. So Terry, you guys did a fantastic job. I would have said 2.26, but Kent, you just picked the perfect day because that saved us millions of dollars. We really appreciate that. I just have to accept this. Do we need a motion?
I'll make the motion, Mr. Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, or excuse me, comments, Commissioner Gehrig?
Ken, that's a great rate, obviously. And if you're second place there, you missed out by just a little bit. I'd like to refinance my home at that amount. I noticed that we're at a AA2 now. When did our rating go down? Last.
Terry, you might have to help me with that. I think it was about a year or so. We've always been a AA. We were a AA1. We went to a AA2. And
there was a plus in there somewhere. with AA1.
Barry, do you want to explain the downgrade? I think it was some concern about the economy.
Well, I think there's two things they're looking at, and it happened with the issue of October 5th, 2020. And prior to that, they had a negative outlook for a while because they were tracking, and it had to do with the level of debt and some of the economy. I do have to say that there was a lot of discussion that were all positive news for Fargo, and a lot of it will come through. A lot of it has to do with some of the money that are coming from American Rescue to shore up some situation, and other CARES money, and along with some of the decisions with the diversion project that are now being funded elsewhere. So there are 3 or 4 pieces of really good news for the city, and a lot of that they will, if it comes out the way it was presented, could be a situation where they could look at bringing it back to AA1.
So while this rate is great, and thank you for the history, that's the cautionary tale I want the residents to hear, is that our rating went down, just like your personal rating. You know, if you have a 700 and it goes down to a 680 or whatever, it's because you hold too much debt. The city of Fargo is in dramatic debt due to special assessments alone, $500 million. That's 2 full years of our operating budget. 2 full years we're in debt from just special assessments. That's not the total debt of Fargo. We're in debt far, far more than that. But we special assess our infrastructure. We take loans out for our infrastructure, and then you pay them back when you pay your mortgage. So we put that over 25 or 30 years. So we're not paying for the roads and the bridges and those things as we go. We're putting that on a credit card. And that's why our rating goes down, because we are putting that on a credit card and we're not paying off right away. We need to do and special assessments. And in the interim, we need to dramatically reduce the amount of special assessments we are getting. And the way we do that is by using the prairie dog funds and the other funds that the state and the federal governments have been offering us. But what we end up doing is just spending more and more on pet projects instead of roads and bridges and sidewalks, the things that you guys use every day.
Can you explain that? We're not really on a credit card. Can you explain that, please?
$500 million.
Our bonding for specials is not a credit card bonding.
Mr. Chair, can I add something whenever I... So a couple things. First of all, special assessments are awesome because the people that are paying the tax are the people that are using that road in front of their sidewalk or whatever. And one more thing I got to tell you, this is awesome. So Amazon, we're very excited. You know, this August, they're going to have 500 jobs. The diversion next year, 7,700 jobs here. So that's 15.4 times Amazon. And that's next year. That's how many jobs are coming to Fargo next year. 7,700 jobs. That is, so when you talk about our credit rating, man, our credit rating next year, and that's going to be 6 years where that number of jobs is going to be coming. That's phenomenal. And so it couldn't be a better time to be in Fargo. Couldn't be a better time looking for a job. The one thing I will guarantee you, everybody in this room that's got an hourly job, you know what your wages are going to be going? Which way? Up or down? Up. Your benefits are going to be going up. I'm telling you, this is the best. We are going to be the boom town of the United States right here in Fargo. Think of that. So I apologize. Don't listen to the naysayers. This is a great place to live, and it's going to be greater. Thank you.
Can you answer that question?
Yeah, I just wanted to address just briefly the debt issue. The city of Fargo took the lead prior to the diversion and issued 2 bond issues somewhere between $40 to $60 million each, so around $100 million worth of debt to get the home buyout system started and get the levees constructed and that type of thing. The diversion in the next few months will be paying off all of that debt. So that comes off of our balance sheet and it goes on to the Cass Joint Water District's balance sheet, if you will. And then there's also part of the financing we started when the diversion started. We received a $100 million loan from Wells Fargo. That's they call it a LIBOR loan. It's currently about 0.2%. It's very cheap financing. But that was to bridge the gap between the time that monies were coming in for the diversion and the final appropriations are being made by the federal government and by the state. So they will also take that $100 million obligation off of the city's balance sheet. So there's a big win there. And I think what Terry was trying to say is, compared to the last rating when they downgraded us, things have improved. Our debt profile will improve. our economy has improved, and even our pension funds, which do carry a liability with them, have improved dramatically. So we didn't receive an upgrade, but we would anticipate as things get better, we'll be back probably to that AA1 bond rating. That's not a promise, that's a hope.
Thank you, Mayor. You made a comment that I'd like to focus in on for the moment. You said this will be a savings to homeowners. It won't be until we implement that, correct? Because right now, people have specials set out up to 25 years at an established interest rate that won't change because we're saving money. So I think this would be a topic to send along with our other tax exempt review discussions. If we do end up having savings come our way for special assessments, for example, to the tune of millions of dollars, I'd like us to figure out how can we, in fact, in reality, give the savings to the homeowners and not just have a higher profitability from the city's perspective.
John, we had a specials commission that worked for over 2 years. They normally could charge a fee of 1.5, and that commission allowed to go up 0.75. So these specials that go to any special debt, which will be, a project will be done, and then this will pay for the project, those are the people that will benefit from that.
The clarifying, that 1.5% isn't the assessment on the debt, it's the fee we charge, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's still a
It goes on top of your interest rate.
Ken,
So it goes on top of your 1.85, it's 0.75.
What's the interest rate we charge to specials now for the homeowner or property owner?
We charge this, and just to clarify, because I think there's some confusion in the discussion, this is a new money issue. This is a brand new financing for brand new reconstructed infrastructure. It is not a refinancing transaction. So we charge the interest cost of the bond, the 1.85 plus 0.75, but there's a markup in there that's allowed by state law, and it's meant to be a cushion for financial uncertainty. Your commission during that 2-year review period lowered that from the state maximum of 1.5% down to 0.75%. So the homeowner essentially pays the bonds plus a 0.75% markup. And that practice will continue into the future. We continue to monitor the funds and that type of thing. But this is a huge win for the people that are benefiting from this. There was 26 projects that were funded. Every year you do a capital improvement plan approval, and basically this is money for last year's projects that will be assessed this fall. So
I'm not unclear, is there not an assessment of 4% or so to people's specials on the books separate from all of this? When you get your specials and you see your interest rates, maybe I'm completely wet behind the ears.
It's a floating rate, Commissioner. It floats with the timing of the bonds that are issued. And in this case, had we issued bonds 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been higher. But it's always fixed at the rate, and it stays the same through the life of the debt issue.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
To your point, John, it's a smart question, because if we were to be refinancing, let's say we went from a 5% down to this 1.8%, I think it's still state law that we cannot reduce the people's percentage. So we wouldn't be able to reduce that. There's really nothing we can do about it, which is another reason why specials are not a great system. I think the percent you're talking about is the engineering fee. We can charge, I think, up to 30% engineering fees on any project. So if it's $1 million project, we can assess $1.3 million, and the people pay it, right? So that's another reason why special assessments are bad, because we can basically line our pockets and put that money elsewhere besides where the assessment was going. The contention is that when you get assessed, it goes right to that project. That's not true. It goes to that project until it's paid off, and then for the next 10 years, we spend that on whatever we want to spend that on, to include things like bridges and over to Moria. So that's why special assessments are a bad thing. We can't reduce your rate once we issue the bond. You're stuck there. We can refinance and make all this money doing it. We become the bank, we make the money, and screw the little guy. It's a bad system.
Any other discussion? Thank you, Terry. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Mayor, this is
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I also wanted to mention that Kent included us in studying when the rate dropped from 1.5 to 0.75. And it was the biggest thing that it was covering is the cost of issuance and the underwriter's discount for issuing the bonds. And so there wasn't a lot of profit in that. It was just covering a lot of that cost in a very small contingency.
Thank you for that. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
Mahoney,
Aye. I'm gonna do one thing, just discretion of the chair. I'm gonna move the Lions Club project up to the next thing that comes in after intermission, because we've quietly been sitting here, and I have an older mayor there at Furnace that wants to get home for supper, I'm pretty sure. But we'll start them at, when we come back into session, we'll do 5 minutes and come back at 6:33. Thank you. Back to order. And I think I have Nicole Crutchfield to introduce the next group. The Lions Club has been very busy on a project for us, and as spring comes, and normally we would sandbag, and we didn't have to sandbag this year, so many of us partially have forgotten what that joy is of sandbagging in the spring. But I do have a man that knew a lot about sandbagging, and that's Mayor Furnace. So he knows a variety of things about that, and Jane knows as well. Pettinger is the work she's done on this as well. So Nicole, I'll let you introduce him again and just talk a little bit about the project, please.
Sure. I will. I'm glad to introduce, and it's our honor to introduce members of the Lions Club as they celebrate their 100th celebration. They've come forward and offered this gift to the city of Fargo, and I'm going to let them speak to it from here. It did come in front of the Arts and Culture Commission. They've been part of the discussions, and the Lions Club members can introduce that further.
Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Mahoney and commissioners. Happy to be here. I want to tell you a little bit about flood preparation in 1997, 25 years ago. And back at that time, we thought that we would not ever have another flood along the river, and the people that were living along the river kind of agreed with that. But so what we did that year is made about 6 programs or 6 meetings up and down the river for people who were living close to the river. And we then decided we'd take piles of sand out to where they live, and they could get in there and dig their own sandbags and so forth. And we were well prepared to do that until storms came. I think it was in April. And what happened was that the storm came in and froze all the sand that we put out that they could use. That was no good. And then the water started creeping up from the river to where they live. And so at the very last minute, it really became a flood. And we had water going everywhere, and we had people going everywhere. And at the last minute, we needed many helpers to fill the sandbags to protect people everywhere in the city. So we needed everyone in Fargo. We needed the homeowners, we needed students, we need NDSU students as well, and we need kids from the grade schools. We had kids out there filling sandbags. People came from their jobs, that was still not enough, so we put out calls for help for the surrounding area. And we got 25,000 people coming to Fargo to help fight this flood. And they were busy 24 hours a day, every day, until that flood was finished. So we would have lost that flood had we not had all these people, which we call sandbaggers. And we won the fight with the sandbaggers who came from all these different places, from everywhere, as we said. And what you see tonight is going to be a piece of art recognizing all of those people who worked frantically to fill the sandbags. And they, along with the thousands of other people, saved the city. And so that is what the Lions Club is providing, a gift to the city to display and recognize what happened in that year. So, Jane?
Thank you, former Mayor Furness. And Bruce is also a member of the Lions Club when I joined and for many, many years. My name is Jane Pettinger, and thank you again for allowing us to present to you. There's a model in front of you of what the artwork will look like. That is a 1/12 scale model. When it is completed, it will be, let me get this correct, over 28 feet long, 2 feet deep, and over 6 feet in height if it were on the ground. But as you know, it'll be mounted on the pillars you see on your screen that are already erected in Riverside Gardens just to the east of City Hall here. And when it is finished, it will be 17.5 feet at its apex. And you see, of course, the sandbaggers depicted. The coloring is not correct, of course, on the model. We've worked with the city to make a number of amendments from the original plan to make sure that the pillars themselves do not have any damage or staining on them, and to make sure that it will withstand our North Dakota winters and springs. Bruce mentioned 1997 flooding. We prepared for flooding in 2001, 2006, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2013, and 2019, and as recent as 2020. As you all recall, we thought we may flood last year. So this effort that has become so normal to many of us, sadly, is something our children won't need to do. Between the flood walls and the diversion, we don't think sandbagging will be a thing, except maybe on the golf course. So we want people to remember, and we want people to recognize that this community comes together and stands up for one another, protecting one another when any kind of crisis may arise. So this is a matter of remembering and a matter of commemorating the beautiful people of this community, many of whom, of course, have been here this evening. Do you have any questions?
Is there any questions, commissioners? This is all self-funded. The Lions are raising the money for this. You have
Yes.
many people contributing to it as well.
Yes, there has been, I have some of the major contributors' names with me. Former Mayor Furness was our first donor to the project. We have the North Dakota Lions Foundation granting money, Gate City Bank, Heartland Trust, Sanford Foundation, Houston Engineering, KPH Incorporated, Key Contracting, Northern Improvement Company, Master Construction, Moore Engineering, and many others. The FM Convention and Visitors Bureau is waiting to formalize their gift until you formalize acceptance of the gift. And then our point from tomorrow forward is to take this public. Because it's a monument about community, we want the community to be able to participate in making it happen. So the funding is not completed yet. We want the community to be able to say, here's my $5 or my $50 or my $5,000 in order to make this happen. So that will go public tomorrow. We're holding a reception here in City Hall for the media, which all left now. Darn it. But we'll host them tomorrow and let them know about this. We want them to help us get the word out so that people can donate through the FM Area Foundation so that they have tax-deductible contributions. Great question.
And Jane, who do you have with you as well?
I'm sorry, you've met Mayor Furness. We have Sue Anderson, a member of the club. She's been part of the amazing fundraising machine that we have going on. And Mike Benson, whose original idea it is. Mike lived along the river. His home was sandbagged time and again. I live along the river, right across the street from where you used to live, Mayor Mahoney. And we've had sandbaggers in my neighborhood too many times in the few years that I've been there. So we truly have benefited from this kind of community spirit, which is what the Lions Club is all about as well.
Good. Well, I think we need to give you a round of applause for all this hard effort. I have a motion to accept this gift.
I so move. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Thank you, Mayor Furness. I learned a lot about sandbagging after you left your office, or should I not say that? But many flood fights we had after that, and we made it better. We did it inside, and the best time we had a flood fight was inside the dome because it was all not frozen sand. So, roll call vote, please.
Thank you.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. And if the team wants to leave, you're excused the rest of the meeting. We'll go on our usual stuff, but this isn't quite the chamber that Furness was in at the time he was mayor. Item 31, and I don't want you to hear about all the money Bruce is talking about bringing us today, but the fiscal year 2022 federal funding opportunities for city-related projects. Bruce Grow.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. It was about a week ago when we were notified by Congressman Kelly Armstrong's office of some federal funding opportunities for the upcoming fiscal year 2022. One of the opportunities by the U.S. House Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development, and that's called Community Project Funding. And the other by the U.S. House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and that is essentially an extension of the 2021 Surface Transportation Authorization. And so Each congressional district in North Dakota, we're one single district, each district being asked to submit 10 projects prioritized under the Community Project Funding Program, and 5 projects also prioritized under the Surface Transportation Funding Program. And so tonight, what I'd like to do is cover the topics that you see on this screen. The first 2 related to the Congressman's request for potential projects. That's the Community Project Funding Program and the 2021 Surface Transportation Authorization. And we do have a recommendation for the Commission tonight regarding potential Fargo project submittals. But in addition to that, I would also like to take the opportunity to brief you on some other federal programs that you've likely heard more about. One is the American Rescue Plan, which is out of Congress and signed by the President, and the other is the American Jobs Plan, more commonly referred to as the Infrastructure Plan, and that is still being worked on in Congress. So starting out with the Congressman's request from about a week ago, first the Community Project Funding Opportunity, just some high-level information. It's capped at 1% of total discretionary funding. Back in 2019, that amounted to $1.9 trillion. The congressional districts have been asked to submit their prioritized lists April 28th to the 30th. Each congressional district is allowed under this program to submit up to 10 prioritized projects district-wide. If a project is selected or approved for funding, the funds need to be obligated within 12 months. And within Congressman Armstrong's district, the state of North Dakota, he asked for individual project requests to be submitted to his office by April 19th at noon. That's today. But we were successful in getting an extension to that so that we could discuss this tonight in front of the Commission. So specifically, the Community Projects Program, again, being led by the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development. The Community Projects Program has a number of categories, but the category being requested here is known as Economic Development Incentives. And the eligible uses are shown on this slide, actually quite broad, include land and site acquisition, demolition, or rehabilitation of housing or facilities. Also includes construction and capital improvements of public facilities, including water and sewer facilities. And in addition to that, planning and other activities consistent with the underlying authorization for the CDBG grant programs within HUD. The other program we'll talk about tonight is being led by the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and is essentially an extension of the 2021 Surface Transportation Authorization. In this case, members of Congress have been given the same deadline for submittal, 28th through the 30th, only in this case to submit 5 prioritized projects. Similarly, the congressman asked for a noon deadline today on those, but we got an extension to tomorrow. Eligible uses here match the same eligibility criteria as the 2021 Surface Transportation Authorization. And so because we had such a short notice on this with just a week turnaround time, we had several internal staff meetings last week to identify potential projects under each funding program and applied the project criteria to each of the programs and then tried to reach a consensus on a recommendation for you tonight. So for the economic development initiatives, we evaluated 5 potential projects and created an evaluation rubric to help in that effort. The rubric shown on the screen. So the 5 projects we identified, reading on the top from left to right, include the high-rise demolition and supportive housing program, Mid-America Steel demolition, housing stabilization plan, West Side sanitary interceptor sewer, and wastewater treatment plant bid alternates that were passed on earlier. And the rubric exercise revealed that the high-rise demolition and supportive housing as the top point getter. For the surface transportation project possibilities, we evaluated 4 potential projects, created a similar evaluation rubric tool, and that rubric is shown on this screen, although it's got slightly different criteria. But reading along the top, left to right, 12th Avenue North Bridge reconstruction into Minnesota, 40th Avenue South pedestrian bridge over the Red River, new Southwest Transit hub to replace the West Acres hub, and then at 19th Avenue North and 45th Street, a potential grade separation project. And so this rubric exercise revealed the 12th Avenue North Bridge construction project as the top point getter. So based on that, the review and evaluations, if you've seen, the staff recommendation to you tonight is to submit the following projects to Congressman Armstrong. Under the Community Project Funding Program, the High-Rise Demolition and Supportive Housing Program, and under the 2021 Service Transportation Authorization Program, 12th Avenue North Bridge into Minnesota. I also added a couple of things. These are just descriptions of those two projects, and this slide is a description relative to the high-rise project, and I think it'd be really worthwhile. I'd like to call on Nicole Crutchfield, our planning director, to briefly describe this project, and we'll do the same thing with the transportation project as well. So Nicole, thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. And this project, in summary, for anybody that's been working on housing programs in downtown knows about the high-rise, and it's just last year it received the approval for disposition, and as we know, there's about $3 to $5 million, or I think now $5 to $6 million worth of abatement needed for asbestos and lead. And I think right now is going through a feasibility analysis on whether or not full demolition is needed or not. But regardless, we also know that we have the SRO building, the single room occupancy building at 64 4th Street under city title, and also on the HUD program list. So both of these activities are high on our priority for the HUD consolidated plan. And so the idea is that 20 hard to house folks could potentially occupy the SRO building that's been modified to be modified and rehabbed, or an additional new build for 25 units and 25 units for housing, transitional housing, and 10 medical respite units, which are also high on our HUD list. The last piece of this would be an engagement center, which we call a supportive housing program. Basically, it's a one-stop shop for those needing outreach. Jan Elison has already worked with these 5 partners: Senca, Southeast Human Services, Presentation Partners in Housing, Family Health, Homeless Health, Family Health Cares Program. And basically taking that and putting it into a complete program would be the summary of this project. It's supported by our 5-year HUD consolidated plan, as well as the downtown and focus plan. And we have been talking to local developers. I was going to be coming in front of you in August talking about this, and when this came forward, it just ramped up the timeline on that.
Thank you, Nicole. And put up on the slide, this is a project description of the 12th Avenue North Bridge reconstruction, flooding problems, and I would like to call on Brenda Derrig, our city engineer, to briefly describe this project. Thank you, Brenda.
Thank you, Bruce. The city of Fargo has 8 river crossings, and 4 of them flood or near flooding when we get up to that 37 feet through town. The 12th Avenue North Bridge connects 15th Avenue in Moorhead. So it'd be the replacement of a flood-prone structure. So in the last 12 years, for about 1 to 2 months, we've had it closed 5 times. The bridge, this location of the bridge is really close to a lot of destination places. It's close to the VA. We see a lot of VA crossing at this location. Also, the Sanford facility is very close to this. And then you also have the NDSU campus. In reviewing the traffic volumes that go through there, which is around about 10 to 12,000 vehicles a day, about 60% of those users are work-based that are crossing back and forth.
Thank you, Brenda. And so the staff recommended motion is shown on the screen. If the commission concurs with this, we'll get the appropriate project forms submitted tomorrow morning, and we would be happy to answer any questions you might have at this point before I go on.
Any questions, Commissioner Pepcorn?
Just one quick one for Brenda. The bridge, is there an issue with, I think Minnesota is our partner, obviously, with that. How will that go as far as funding and things like that?
Well, so we have options. So depending on if this project would get selected and move forward, we estimated it'd be about a 3 million local share. And so right now, they would not have that programmed. And so we would either have to work with them on how to fund that 3 million. So today, we do not have a plan on how we would share that with them.
And just one more.
With the quickness of what this moving, we have not gotten to that point yet.
But usually we'd negotiate with them if we were going to do a bridge. to their
Correct.
side. Yeah.
And I guess the follow-up question, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, but so obviously this is going to be up out of the flood. So it's going to be a bigger bridge and higher, correct? Can you just talk a little bit about that so it doesn't have the same issues?
Yeah, so today the project, the bridge on 12th Avenue North goes under at 28 feet. So it does go, I mean, we do have to disassemble it, so we take the railings off, we take the streetlights off of it, and allow it to flood. Structurally, we haven't seen any structural issues like we're seeing on the North Broadway Bridge, yet with the closing as frequently as it is, that causes issues, and it reroutes traffic. So it reroutes traffic into the downtown area. And so what we would be looking at is getting it above that 37-foot through town and getting it at an elevation that would not require that closing.
And I think the other thing is important that you talked about the other day is when they did the toll bridge, 1,500 cars went over it. Now 11,000 cars go over it. And so it's no longer a toll bridge, but it is a transportation that's a big part of our community. So there'd be no reason for Minnesota not to agree. Commissioner Strand, you got a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. I have the dumbest question in the world, of course. You mentioned the North Broadway Bridge. It's shut down, it's unsafe, it's not usable, the pillars are shifting on it. What consideration was there to making that our application rather than the 12th Avenue North Bridge, which is functional?
So the North Broadway Bridge, we have the consultant right now doing evaluation on it. A couple of things that we need to look into before we come back to commission on what the right path forward is we need to look at the geotechnical stability of the road on the North Dakota side to make sure that we can get that to stop moving. So right now, Public Works goes out there periodically and adds another lift of asphalt on it because we do have a fault within that roadway. And so I would say we didn't pick that one yet because we're still evaluating, is it a reconstruct or a rehabilitation, a complete reconstruction, or do we not continue to have it? You know, those will be the three options on that one, but we need more geotechnical information before we can even look at what option to go with.
And Brenda, what's the traffic count over it?
That one is,
Much less.
it's much less. I know it's not over 5,000, but off the top of my head, I don't know.
But Mr. Chair, we have a lot of extenuating circumstances that are going to be happening for that bridge in the future too. I mean, there's going to be a lot of development and a lot of traffic in that area. And so the thing, I would like us, if you want, I'll make a motion to eliminate the option of not rebuilding that bridge because I believe that is a critical bridge and I know we need to do more evaluation, but if you eliminate that bridge, then you push traffic through the neighborhoods, and that would be a very unwise decision.
Could we wait till we get the evaluation?
All right.
You're engineers. Engineers like to have all the facts before they make a statement, right? I think you're just asking us, do we approve these two projects tonight? Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Preston?
Just a question about, I'm assuming that you examined how high this bridge would need to be and how far that extends out onto 12th Avenue and whether it disrupts the neighborhood. Would that ever be an issue?
We've got, I suppose it didn't make it in here. We have looked at where the touchdown points are. It would conflict just a little bit with the parking lot for the baseball stadium on the south, but on the Moorhead side, it's all green space on either side.
Jeremy Gordon has a little picture. I'll have him send it to all the commissioners that shows what the 12 touchdowns are.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Nice presentation. Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Garrick?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. You have something else, Bruce?
Thank you. Yes, I do. I try and move quickly, but in addition to that, there are some other federal funding programs that I'm sure you've heard about or read about recently. One is the American Rescue Plan Act, which, as I mentioned earlier, it's been passed out of Congress and signed by the president. The other is something called the American Jobs Act, which is being referred to in the media as the infrastructure bill. And that is still being worked on in Congress. But first, the American Rescue Plan. What this slide shows is the impact on the state of North Dakota. You can see that just over $1 billion to the state and another $350 million to cities and counties. That money is to be distributed in two equal distributions, one in 2021 and the other in 2022, with a requirement that the funds be utilized by the end of the 2024 calendar year. At the local level, here's what the city of Fargo and Cass County are scheduled to receive. Fargo, $19.67 million, and Cass County, $35.28 million. Again, in two equal distributions, one in 2021 and one in 22. Fargo's distribution will be a direct distribution rather than being routed through the state because we're recognized federally as a metro city, meaning we're over 50,000 in population and operate a CDBG program. We're not the only one. There are 3 recognized metro cities in the state of North Dakota: Fargo, Grand Forks, and Bismarck. So at a high level, these are the eligible uses. Either replacing lost revenue, water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure, premium pay to essential workers, or assistance to households, small businesses, nonprofits, and industries impacted by COVID-19. Again, the funding has to be used by the end of the 2024 calendar year. The use of the ARP funding, obviously in Fargo, hasn't been determined yet. And would ultimately need to be a decision made by the city commission. Federal guidance on the use of these funds is expected to come out of the Treasury office by mid-May, so we're waiting on that. But we do think the commission needs an opportunity to discuss this and may even want to seek public comment on this. So the other project that is still in Congress is the American Jobs Plan. Been proposed as a big one. As introduced, $2.3 trillion with $621 billion for what we think of as traditional infrastructure. But this is how it was introduced: funding for water infrastructure, energy infrastructure, digital infrastructure, building and retrofitting affordable housing, early education, K through 12 and community colleges, infrastructure resiliency, research and development and manufacturing incentives, and workforce training initiatives. And so that's a brief update. We're still tracking and working on those things. Would like to get some input or some discussion from commissioners tonight. So as we move forward, we have a feel for where the commission might want to go with this. So thank you for your attention.
Comments, questions? Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. For the life of me, I just don't know how our country is going to pay for all this. You know, we're a really conservative red state, and it's like we couldn't hold our hands out further. And I understand it. Money seems to be free, and I'm the liberal guy up here, but I just don't know the path we're on, what things will look like years later, and I value the support that's coming our way, but somebody's got to pay the piper at some point. And I hope they come up with a payback plan that addresses these expenditures that are just so grandiose.
Bruce, could you go back one slide, please? I'd like all of you as commissioners to look at this list of things that can be done and think about your own portfolios if there's something that we could fund out of this. If there's something you see in there that you know that is something we need, Commissioner Gregg, you need a fire station at Station 8 or whatever. If there's things you're thinking about, Arlette and John, in the neighborhoods, if we're going to do retrofitting houses, making single-family housing, if we're going to do low-income housing, we've talked about that before. Let's start looking at different things. John, I don't know how they're going to pay for it, but if they give the money, can we use it for useful things? And I'll just hope Tony pays for it when I get older. But I mean, I think we need to think of this realistically as where should we put our money and where will it make the most impact. And I think Nicole and her team have to work with us as well. We've had many things on a list that just have never, ever happened because we didn't have the money. So I think each one of you take time to talk to Mike and Bruce and to Kent and see where we might put some of that. Commissioner Gary.
Are we able to pay back loans with this? So like the water plant, sewer plant, we're in debt with those, with the big increases that we've had just with the water plant, now with the sewer plant.
I posed that question today, and we're pursuing that. Not quite sure if you can use this to satisfy previous debt or not, but good question.
And even not, you know, our sewer plant, we're gonna borrow more money for that in the future. We're talking major bucks. So I want the commission to consider that if we don't have a loan for that, that's automatic savings in our pocket. Even if it's 2 or 3%, 2 or 3% of, you know, $100 million adds up to the taxpayers in the long run. That means we could keep our sewer rates low for as long as possible, and that would really help.
Helps to fund the rate increases you might have in the future.
That really helps the lowest common denominator too, right? People who worry about paying things like the water bill and the sewer bill are probably the people that make the less in our community. So those are the type of things that people don't think about off the top of their head. Oh, infrastructure like water and sewer, but if we can keep those costs really low, I think that's who we help the most people in our city. And it's also my portfolio, so.
So are you asking for feedback on both of these plans? The money allocated in both of them?
Certainly the American Rescue Plan, that is a certainty that the 19.67 million will be coming our way. The infrastructure plan, I showed how it was introduced. It's unlikely that it'll come with this much there, but I'm quite sure something will come out of Congress as well. So primarily the ARP is what we were curious about.
What I would suggest is that you send us some information about the previous one, the rescue plan, so that we can digest it a little bit and think about it. I think that would be helpful.
You want to talk about the money in hand rather than the money we don't know if we're going to get.
Exactly.
Okay.
Sure, thank you.
Any other comments, Commissioner Strand?
Thank you. One last comment is, it's easy for us when we're at the table to know what's in front of us. But I would challenge us to think of people who aren't at the table, who don't have voices, who aren't sitting there in decision-making seats. You know, the people who are most at risk, the people who have the most challenges surviving in life, people who are hungry, people who can't afford their electric bills, people who can't afford that whole list of people. So if we can just challenge ourselves to not overlook our neediest, most vulnerable, at-risk people, to see if there's any way we can deliver help to them, I'd welcome that.
Thank you.
And you've maybe already done that, but.
Very good. Got all you want?
That's the update. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bruce. Construction update. I see Brenda here and I see Tom on my list. Who's speaking then? Okay, Brenda. Derek is going to speak about the construction update.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. It's that time of the year again, and so we'll be starting our updates throughout the construction season, and we've got a lot going on this summer, and it's going to be an exciting summer. Again, I'd like to start with we're working very diligently to keep our fargostreets.com site updated and with the status of all of our projects. So we have 3 sites that we keep updated on the Twitter, Facebook, and then our fargostreets.com. So projects that we have started with the nice weather, even though we've had a little bit of setback here, is we've started on the 64th Avenue South Overpass, 38th Street down by the new athletic facility, and 64th Avenue. The underground was installed last year, and we're starting on the paving this year. 7th Avenue North, we closed the area along University today to start that work. We have Laverne's Addition, 44th Avenue North up by Amazon. They're starting on the paving. We have the Southwest Metro Regional Pond, and then the North Side Flood Risk Management Project. And that would be the levee that is north of 40th Avenue North. In the next few weeks, we've got more projects that will be starting up. We've got our citywide sidewalk construction and our asphalt crack fill. University Drive North from 32nd Avenue to 40th Avenue will be starting up. Elm Street Mill and Overlay, along with 21st Avenue South. And then we have Valley View Estates. As of right now, we've only gotten a week into it, and we're doing well with our safety, and we've had no incidents so far. So we're just going to quick go through a few pictures. This is our 64th Avenue overpass. They're clearing and grubbing and then stripping the topsoil. And then this is at 64th looking north on 38th Street, where the new athletic complex will be built on the right side of that roadway. 7th Avenue North from University to Broadway, the detour is in place to 8th Avenue, and we have interim signals at 10th and University Drive. Currently, University at 7th is down to 1 lane, and it will be like that for about 30 days. That's how long that will be reduced there. And they're working on removals starting today. Laverne's Addition is north of 19th Avenue North. This is an industrial park. We have a new facility that's being built there on the east side of 42nd Street that's going to take that whole block. And so we've got the underground and paving getting started up there, and we're already in discussions for the next phase of Laverne's north of there. So there's been a lot of demand on these industrial sites. The Amazon we've got 44th Avenue, we've got all the underground in, and they started on the dirt work and roadway. Our Southwest Metro Regional Pond is along Drain 53, just south of 52nd Avenue South, and we are working on getting that, all the topsoil stripped and starting on the excavation. We will be using some of that fill to help with the 64th Avenue overpass. That's one of the things that help keep those costs down. And I'd entertain any questions if you have them.
A lot of dirt. You're moving a lot of dirt now. Any questions, any commissioners? Good report so far. Keep it up. Can we go into the Excel, 12-inch Excel energy gas main?
So I'd like to introduce this one too. Our staff has been working diligently with Excel Energy, and they are working on a very large project that will be starting north along 7th Avenue in West Fargo and coming down and going all the way down to 33rd Avenue and 45th Street. So today we have Tony Grimberg with Excel Energy and Todd Hummel that will do the presentation for you.
Gee, a former mayor and a former commissioner, you can't keep awake. And I'm glad we kept you here all night. Thank you.
Well, Mayor, Todd Hummel, colleague, project engineer, pleasure to be here. I kind of felt like deja vu earlier talking about special assessment task force and liquor moratoriums. Just felt like I was, oh, wait a minute, I can't vote on that. So, a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm just going to provide a few opening remarks to hit on Commissioner Pepcorn's point. This is about growth. This $25 to $30 million project will expand our capacity to keep gas pressure and serves south growth, southern part of our town. And as Brenda shared with 64th Avenue, where the Sanford complex is going to be in the Park District, you're also going to see news in the coming weeks about the Career Academy going to be out in that same area. So it's a positive thing for our community as well. Again, I'll let Todd go through the slides, but just a little quick update. Xcel Energy, many of you might remember it, Northern States Power, 112 years in North Dakota. We are the operating company. I lead the North Dakota operations, 5th month. And so North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota are one of the 4 operating companies. Wisconsin's a separate operating company, Colorado, and then the 3 quadrants of Oklahoma, Texas, and New Mexico. About 12,000 employees system-wide, and in North Dakota here, we have primarily Grand Forks, Fargo, and Minot, and some surrounding smaller communities. And so that gives you a context about Xcel Energy's commitment and to the state of North Dakota. And it's exciting to be part of learning the world of wires, if you will. And I'll just close. I know renewable energy and carbon-free is a big topic right now. It is in the North Dakota legislature. And as you may know, Xcel has committed to a carbon-free vision by 2050. And on June 8th, there will be a series of speakers, both with Xcel and other energy industry leaders in Fargo for the Chamber of Commerce Energy Summit on June 8th. If you're interested in the world of energy, I thought it was pretty straightforward when I was accepting the position, but it's fairly complex. As well as the innovation and the changes going on in the energy industry. I think you'd find that event very worthwhile. So Todd, take it away.
Thank you, Tony. My name is Todd Hummel, project engineer with Xcel Energy. Pleasure to be here to speak about this very important project. This project is going to provide about 4.5 miles of 12-inch high pressure distribution gas line. About 2 of those miles will be in Fargo, 2.5 will be in West Fargo, and it will include 1 regulator station. As Tony identified, this project really is to help support that future growth in South Fargo and to make sure that we can provide a reliable natural gas resource to our community. Construction for this project is anticipated to start in May of this year and will be completed in the fall of 21. Looking at this project route, the project starts at 7th Avenue North and 9th Street in West Fargo and continues south along 9th Street where it crosses Interstate 94. It'll then continue on 55th Street and Cedar Parkway until tying back into our existing infrastructure along 33rd Avenue South at the intersection of 45th Street. Some of the items we wanted to highlight tonight are our potential traffic impacts. So as much as we've tried to eliminate any traffic impacts that may be necessary, there will be some partial or complete closures that must be taking place to facilitate that construction. Similarly, we may see closures to sidewalks where necessary, but one of the things that we'll do is provide detour routes for both traveling public and pedestrians alike. This exhibit here kind of just outlines some of the measures that will be in place during construction, including items like tubular markers, delineator drums, closure signs, barricades, as well as concrete jersey barriers to help protect vehicular traffic adjacent to the work zone. We really want to make sure that we provide a safe environment for vehicles, pedestrians, as well as the construction workers that'll be installing this gas main. There's also a likelihood for tree impacts along this corridor, and though we're trying to minimize those as much as possible, there will be locations where the tree impacts cannot be avoided. However, in those instances, we will replace those trees with similar types in same locations, and we'll monitor those trees after this project is completed to ensure that they regrow. We've been working with City of Fargo Engineering and Forestry to come up with a plan to warranty these trees that may need to be replaced. Talk a little bit about restoration. Anything that would be disturbed as a result of this project would be restored to the pre-construction conditions. Some of that restoration may be temporary to help provide immediate access, for example, to a residential development to get them back into their communities sooner with as minimal disruption as possible. Then final restoration will follow and will be assured to follow City of Fargo engineering standards to bring this back to its existing conditions. Talk about gas safety here. It's really the foundation of everything that we do at Xcel Energy. Every decision that we make in regards to this project, safety is number one. And that started with the initial design and planning of this project. It'll continue through construction with items like third-party inspection to assure that this meets and exceeds federal, state, and our own company safety standards. And then post-construction as well, while this gas line is in operation, we'll continue to monitor that, doing hazard patrols, leak surveys, and 24/7 monitoring to assure this is a safe and reliable service. We want to make sure that this information is available to the public. We have a large number of resources out there, including a website. We have an email and a hotline that your constituents can reach out to, ask questions if they may have any. We've also held public meetings in March of 21 and have done mailers and will continue to do mailers throughout the project corridor. This exhibit kind of shows the notification area. It's a 750-foot buffer on either side of our project corridor where residents and landowners and businesses will be provided updates throughout construction via those mailers. If after this evening there are any questions, by all means, our contact information is available here. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Again, we thank you very much for the opportunity to present on this important project and be happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Commissioners, any questions of Todd or Tony? If not, can I have a motion?
I so move.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. And then Tony, can we have that meeting you're having in June given to our team so we can put it on the website so if people want to go to it, they can?
Yeah, the official, if you go to the Chamber of Commerce website, Eggs and Issues, the information, basic information is there. The more formal program will be released by the Chamber, I think, in a week to 10 days.
Okay, thank you. Item 33, application for property tax exemption for improvements made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
Second.
Is there a second? I see Tim Flacco's in the room, so he's going to get the benefit from this. But other than that, any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 34, Commissioner Gregg would like to remove all permitting laws for the city of Fargo codes regarding public gatherings. Tony, you want to explain, please?
Yep, so I'll be overly broad. We have laws in the books in the city of Fargo that dictate, if you're going to have a gathering in public right away, you have to get a permit to do that. And it tells you the parameters for that, what you need to do in order to do those things. These are things all the way up from things like parades downtown, all the way down to your local block parties. The problem, however, is that we're not enforcing this law uniformly across the board. So if we're not enforcing the law, there's three options that we have. We can either enforce the law as it's written, we can update the law, or we can get rid of the law. So in my opinion, this needs updating. I talked to Eric earlier today. I talked to the police chief last week about this. And Eric, if you would, kind of give us an idea of when this was written, if there's deficiencies in your opinion, and how long you think it might take if we did move forward with updating it, how long that would take.
Yeah, Chair, Commissioner Gehrig, yeah, our ordinances address parades. We also have, remember the old sidewalk grilling wars of the early 2000s, where as a result of that, developed a fairly comprehensive set of rules pertaining to the downtown area for use of sidewalks, for sidewalk entertainers, for festivals, including the street fair and things like that. But we don't really have anything that elaborate for the rest of this town, and certainly even the parade ordinance is a very short and sweet ordinance. So fortunately, a few years ago, I think the engineering department sort of headed it up, a process in an attempt to sort of homogenize the application process for all the different kinds of events that happen in the city, and made pretty good progress along that way. It just kind of stalled along the way. So, but I think we could resurrect that, and might not be done in a month, but I would say within a matter of and this is a busy time for engineers, but I don't know what time of year isn't busy for them, but I would think we could, within a matter of 2 or 3 months anyway, have some kind of a program to explain what that is, first of all, then our office could work on an ordinance that implements the program. I think the key is for the departments that are involved in this to have that opportunity to weigh in on issues that are important. So, for example, sort of even the current draft, I couldn't speak in great detail about it, but addresses things like, is it a block party? Is it a small event? Is it a large event? How many people? Is there going to be amplified sound? Do you need street closures, or is it just all on private property? Is traffic control going to be needed? Is safety and security needed for the event? Again, you can imagine a panoply of events needed. If they're using right-of-way, is there a need for site cleanup after the event and trash pickup? Is there alcohol and food service going to be involved, food trucks coming in or whatever the case would be? Is there electricity needed, for example? Are there going to be any tents or temporary structures? Is there a need for portable restrooms? What do we do about insurance requirements? What kinds of things does the city think it's appropriate to require insurance, and what things maybe aren't necessary? Those are some issues that need to be decided at the staff level and ultimately, I assume, presented to you. So, yeah, I think that would be the process, and if you're agreeable to that, then I think the motion would be to direct staff. I think it'd be with the city engineer's office in the lead, but it includes fire and police and probably streets and mains as well, if not other departments, to work together and develop the program and authorize the city attorney's office to develop the appropriate ordinance.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Second.
So this has come up, sometimes some of the marches are spontaneous. They come over 3 days. They don't always get a permit, and it doesn't always work that way. Liability is rarely needed or used because there's no damage that is done. Makes sense for Excel Parade when they have big tractors and things coming in, they might cause an injury to somebody. Our peaceful marches have not had any of those issues. So I think it is good offer to, let's relook at our laws and make them be more appropriate. All I would ask is oftentimes if people are going to have something in which they're interacting with the streets or whatever, that we know the police know what's going on so they can do the things they need to do to keep the traffic out of the way. So any other discussion? Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Chairman, Eric, is there a fee associated with the permit?
Well, I would suspect there is. I don't recall seeing in the materials I have if there is a fee or what it would be. Obviously, that would be up to you.
In the one I saw,
to decide whether there's a fee or not.
In the one you sent me, Eric, there was no fee involved, but it said if there's over 50 people, then a permit's requested to have. So that's part of the issue. But the police chief is supposed to give the permission to do it, but it gets a little convoluted when it gets downtown. So
It would be helpful if you could just forward the information about the current ordinances, and if that's possible.
Yes, sure. I can do that, yes.
Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. My one bit of advice would be, as we go down this path, that we make sure it's our overarching goal to not stifle assembly or speech.
Yeah, I mean, we actually are consciously aware of that in terms of making, it's appropriate to have time, place, and manner restrictions, but not content of certain reasons for assembly and so forth.
Mr. Chairman?
Tuned to that.
Mr. Preston.
That's the reason I asked about a fee, because a fee could be restrictive to freedom of speech. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Gary?
Yes.
Pipcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
I didn't do public comment at the beginning because we had a lot of public comment tonight, so just if you know, we'll push that on to next time we had a video to show. I'll show it on next visit. I did have one resident that was concerned about an issue for Public Works, called in on a Sunday on our Fargo one, got a response the next day. I just want to do a shout out for Public Works team that did the things they do and responded nicely to that citizen as timely as possible. Commissioner Strand, am I okay to adjourn the meeting? Do you have somebody's birthday, anniversary, something that's going on?
I don't at the moment.
Okay, well, we can be thankful that Pipcorn made it off the slopes and did come back without a broken leg, so move to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 We're adjourned.